Part 3. The Battle for Kelthera. Prime space burned. The human fleet drove forward into a storm of enemy fire. Green beams lanced through the darkness, cutting ships in half. Human weapons answered with railgun fire and plasma bolts that turned the void bright. Ships exploded on both sides, dying in silence. Captain Dae-hyun watched 3 destroyers vanish from his tactical display in as many seconds. Concentrate fire on the closest capital ship. Clear us a path. 30 human vessels focused their weapons on one of the massive creature ships. The thing was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Indomitable. Its surface writhed with activity as weapons opened across its hull. But humanity had learned from the first fight. They were not giving it time to regenerate. Nuclear missiles struck first, cracking the armor. Then came everything else. Railguns punched through the weakened sections. Plasma cannons melted the exposed interior. The alien ship tried to heal, but there was too much damage coming too fast. It died in a burst of biological matter and twisted metal. "Gap opening," the tactical officer shouted. "We have a corridor to the planet." "All ships through now," Admiral Jiwon ordered. "Marines, prepare for immediate deployment." The fleet pushed through the opening, losing 5 more ships in the process. But they made it. They reached Kelthera Prime. Up close, the planet looked even worse. The atmosphere was choked with smoke. Entire continents were burning. But there, beneath a shimmering energy dome, was a city. The last city. 3 million souls waiting for death or rescue. General Tae Yang was already in a dropship with the first wave. "All ground forces, this is General Tae Yang. We are going in hot. Expect immediate combat upon landing. Secure the evacuation zones and prepare to hold them. Good luck." The dropships fell toward the planet like metal rain. Lieutenant Minji was in the lead ship with her Special Forces team. They were the best humanity had, trained for impossible missions. But as they approached the surface, even Minji felt her stomach tighten. The city below was under siege. The energy dome was flickering, failing in places. And pouring through the gaps were the ground forces of the Devourers. They were monsters. Each one was different, built from the bodies of creatures they had consumed. Some had 6 legs and metal claws. Others were massive, hulking things that stood 4 meters tall. All of them moved with terrible purpose, tearing through defensive lines and consuming everything in their path. "Contact in 10 seconds, the pilot shouted. The dropship slammed into the ground near the city center. The ramp dropped, and Minji led her team out into hell. The Keltherans were insect-like beings with crystalline exoskeletons that reflected the light. They were beautiful in their own way. Right now they were terrified, huddling behind makeshift barricades as the monsters came for them. "Spread out," Minji ordered. "Defensive positions, protect the civilians." Her team moved with practiced efficiency, setting up heavy weapons and creating firing lines. When the first Devourer creature charged around a corner, they were ready. 50 rifles opened fire at once. The creature took the hits and kept coming. It took a rocket launcher to finally bring it down. The thing collapsed, twitched once, and then started dissolving into black sludge. "They die," Minji shouted. "They can be killed. Keep firing." More dropships landed. Thousands of Marines poured out, establishing a defensive perimeter around the evacuation zones. Sergeant Jinwoo hit the ground with his squad and immediately came under fire from 3 different directions. "Take cover," he bellowed, diving behind, a piece of rubble that might have been a building once. His squad scattered, finding whatever protection they could. The Devourers came in waves. They did not care about tactics or preservation. They just attacked, endlessly, trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Jinwoo's squad held their position for an hour, burning through ammunition at a terrifying rate. Bodies piled up in front of them, both human and alien. The smell was terrible. The noise was worse. A young Marine next to Jinwoo took a hit and went down. Jinwoo dragged him back behind cover, but it was too late. The kid was gone. "Sergeant, we cannot hold much longer," someone shouted. "Yes, we can," Jinwoo shouted back. "Because if we do not, those civilians die. So reload and keep shooting." High above, the space battle continued. The human fleet was taking brutal losses, but they were holding the corridor open. Barely, Captain. Dae-hyun watched another destroyer explode on his screen. They were down to 30 ships now and the enemy seemed endless. Sir, we have a problem, his tactical officer said. Long-range sensors are picking up reinforcements. More Devourer ships jumping in. How many? Dozens, maybe hundreds. They are coming from all over the system. Dae-hyun felt his heart sink. They were going to lose this fight. There was no way around it. The only question was how many civilians they could save before the end. On the ground, Yuna was working with Keltharan scientists to coordinate the evacuation. She had set up a mobile command post in what was left of their government building. The Keltharans were bringing civilians in organized groups, trying to stay calm, despite the battle raging outside. A Keltharan elder approached her. It took Yuna a moment to realize this was Velthar, the one who had sent the distress signal. You came, Velthar said through the translation device. You actually came. Of course we came, Yuna said. You called for help. We thought we were alone, that no one would hear, or if they did, they would not care. Yuna looked at the alien's crystalline face, seeing emotions she could recognize despite the differences between their species: fear, hope, gratitude. We heard, she said simply, and we care. A Keltharan child approached, no bigger than a human 6-year-old. It held out a small crystal that glowed with soft light. For you, the translation device said. Thank you for coming. Yuna took the crystal, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she started to cry. Outside, the battle reached its peak. The Marines were being pushed back, losing ground to the endless waves of Devourer creatures. The space fleet was down to 25 ships and could not hold much longer. Commander Yunwoo made the hardest decision of his life. All ships begin final evacuation. Ground forces fall back to the transports. We are leaving. Sir, there are still hundreds of thousands of civilians, someone started. I know. Hyunwoo cut them off. But if we do not leave now, we save no one. Fall back. That is an order. The withdrawal was chaos. Marines fighting backward, covering the evacuating civilians. Transport ships loading to beyond capacity, cramming in every soul they could fit. Some civilians were left behind, screaming for rescue that would not come. Lieutenant Minji held the final defensive line with 30 soldiers, giving the transports time to lift off. They were down to their last ammunition when she gave the order to retreat. Her team ran for the last transport, enemy creatures right behind them. They made it onto the ramp as it was lifting, still firing at the pursuing monsters. Sergeant Jinwoo watched from his transport as Kelthera Prime fell away below them. The energy dome finally collapsed completely. The Devourers poured into the city, consuming everything. He had saved hundreds, maybe thousands, but hundreds of thousands were down there dying. The fleet limped away from Kelthera Prime, engines straining. The Devourer ships pursued, but slowly, as if they were content to let the humans run. Captain Dae-hyun counted the surviving ships. 15. They had lost 35 vessels, over 100,000 personnel dead or missing, but they had saved 2.2 million Keltharans. The quantum jump gate opened. The fleet jumped away, and Kelthera Prime vanished behind them. In the command center, Commander Hyunwoo sat alone, staring at the numbers. 2.2 million saved, 800,000 left behind. He would remember both numbers for the rest of his life. Part 2. Arrival and Horror. The fleet dropped out of quantum jump at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Dae-hyun was expecting to see stars and planets. Instead, he saw a graveyard. What in the name of... he whispered. The view screen showed destruction on a scale that seemed impossible. Debris fields stretched for millions of kilometers. Shattered space stations tumbled through the void. The twisted remains of ships floated everywhere, some so badly damaged that they were barely recognizable as vessels. And there were bodies, thousands of them, frozen in space, their shapes alien but their death universal. Get me a count, Dae-hyun ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Scanning now, sir, the sensor officer replied. Her voice was shaking. I am detecting, oh God, over 10,000 destroyed vessels. Various sizes. This was not a battle. This was slaughter. Commander Hyunwoo arrived on the bridge moments later. He had been reviewing tactical plans when they dropped from jump. Now he stood frozen, staring at the carnage. Admiral Jiwon's voice came through from her command ship. All vessels, battle stations. Whatever did this might still be here. The fleet spread out, weapons powering up. Marines rushed to their stations. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Everyone waited for an attack that did not come. Focus on the fourth planet, Hyunwoo ordered. That is where the signal came from. The sensors shifted to Kelthera Prime. What they saw made Daehyun's blood run cold. The planet was still there, but it was dying. The surface showed massive craters where cities had been. Fires burned across entire continents, but there were still signs of life. Energy shields, weak but holding, protected a few areas. And orbiting above the planet were the things that had caused all this death. They were ships, but not like any ships humanity had built. They were massive, some the size of small moons. Their hulls were black and seemed to move like they were breathing. Tendrils hung from their sides, swaying in the vacuum of space. Weapon ports opened and closed like mouths, and they were firing on the planet below, methodical and patient, breaking down the last shields. Are those alive? Someone asked. Yuna was studying the sensor readings from the science vessel. Her analysis came through a moment later. They are partially organic. The ships are grown, not built. They are a fusion of biological matter and technology. I have never seen anything like this. How many? Hyunwoo asked. 30 capital ships? Maybe 300 smaller ones. All focused on the planet. And the planet? Yuna was quiet for a moment. Life signs are fading, but there are still millions down there. They are running out of time. Before anyone could respond, alarms screamed across the fleet. One of the enemy ships had detected them. It was smaller than the others, maybe the size of a destroyer. It turned toward the human fleet, and Daehyun got his first good look at it. The thing was covered in armor that looked like bone. Tendrils whipped through space. Weapon ports opened across its surface, glowing with a sickly green light, and it was accelerating toward them impossibly fast. All ships, engage, Admiral Jiwon ordered. The human fleet opened fire. Railguns sent metal slugs at relativistic speeds. Plasma cannons burned through space. Missiles streaked toward the target, hundreds of them. The alien ship took it all and kept coming. Then it fired back. The green beams that shot from its weapons were like nothing in human arsenal. They did not just punch through armor. They corroded it, dissolving metal and making it rot. One beam hit a human destroyer and the entire front section just melted away, spilling atmosphere and crew into space. Evasive maneuvers, Daehyun shouted. The Indomitable rolled, barely avoiding another beam. The battle became chaos. 20 human ships focused fire on the alien vessel, pouring everything they had into it. The creature ship's armor cracked and burned. Pieces of it were blown away. But then something horrible happened. It started healing. The damaged sections writhed and reformed. New armor grew over the wounds. The tendrils that had been severed grew back like they were alive. It is regenerating, the weapons officer shouted. Our damage is not sticking. Hyunwoo made a decision. Nuclear option. All ships fire nuclear missiles. Concentrated strike. 6 ships launched their most powerful weapons. 12 nuclear warheads, each capable of destroying a city. They struck the alien ship within seconds of each other. The explosions were so bright that the view screens had to dim automatically. When the light faded, the alien ship was gone. Just a cloud of debris and fading radiation. The fleet was silent. They had won, but it had taken nuclear weapons and 20 ships working together to kill just one enemy vessel, and there were 300 more around the planet, plus 30 of the big ones. We cannot fight them all, General Taeyang said quietly. We do not have enough ships. Before anyone could respond, a new signal came through. This one was from the planet. The translation was better now, clearer. Unknown vessels, this is Elder Velthar of the Keltheran Union. We detected your battle. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We thought no one would hear us. Please, our shields are failing. We have 3 million civilians left. If you can save anyone, please. The voice broke. It was not human, but the pain in it was something everyone recognized. Hyunwoo looked at the tactical display. The numbers were brutal. The human fleet was already down 20 ships from one enemy. There were hundreds more enemies between them and the planet. The smart move would be to retreat, to go back to Earth and warn humanity about this threat. But Hyunwoo had not come all this way to run. Admiral Jiwon, give me your best tactical assessment. Can we break through to the planet? Ji-won was quiet for a long moment. If we commit everything, if we are willing to lose most of the fleet, we can create a corridor. Maybe hold it open for a few hours, enough to evacuate some of them. Some, Hyunwoo repeated. Not all. No, sir, not all. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. He thought about Earth safe and far away. He thought about the politicians who had argued against coming here. He thought about Sergeant Jinwoo's bad feeling. Then he thought about 3 million people huddled under failing shields waiting to die. We did not come here to save some of them, he said quietly. We came here to save all of them. But we will save who we can. All ships battle formation. We are going in. The human fleet accelerated toward Kelthera Prime. As they approached, more of the alien ships turned to face them. The creatures seemed to realize that these new arrivals were not going to run. Captain Dae-hyun gripped his command chair. All crew, this is the captain. We are about to enter combat against an enemy that has destroyed multiple civilizations. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but there are people down there who called for help. And we answered. So we are going to do what humanity does best. We are going to fight. The alien ships opened fire. The human fleet fired back, and the battle for Kelthera Prime began. Yuna watched from the science vessel, her hands clasped together. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she had helped translate that desperate call for help. And now hundreds of thousands of people were flying into hell because of it. She just hoped it would be enough. Part 5, The Last Stand. They came from the darkness between stars. The deep space sensors detected them first. Quantum signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system, hundreds of them, then thousands. The Devourer fleet emerged from jump space like a plague of locusts, so many that they blocked out the stars behind them. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the tactical display in the command center, his face expressionless. He had known they were coming. He had prepared for this, but seeing the sheer numbers made his blood run cold. Fleet count? He asked quietly. Still coming through, sir, the sensor officer replied. Her voice was shaking. So far, we have over 2,000 capital ships. Tens of thousands of smaller vessels. They are still arriving. Admiral Ji-won was on the command channel from her flagship. They brought everything. This is not a raid. This is an extermination force. Then we will make them regret it, Hyunwoo said. All forces, this is Admiral Hyunwoo. The enemy has arrived in overwhelming numbers. They expect us to break and run. They expect us to die quietly. We are going to disappoint them. All ships engage at will. Show them what humanity can do. The human fleet met the Devourer Vanguard at Jupiter's orbit. 500 human warships against 200 Devourer vessels. The numbers were worse than at Kelthera, but humanity had learned. The first wave of attacks came from long range. Human ships launched thousands of missiles, each one carrying a quantum disruptor charge. The missiles struck home and dozens of Devourer ships suddenly lost coordination, flailing in space as their hive signals were jammed. It is working, someone shouted. But the victory was short-lived. The Devourers adapted. Their ships began emitting counter-frequencies, restoring their coordination within minutes. And then they attacked. The battle that followed made Kelthera look like a skirmish. Space filled with fire and death. Human ships fought with everything they had, using tactics developed over 6 months of desperate preparation. They used the asteroid belt for cover. They set mines that detonated when enemy ships came close. They rammed damaged vessels into enemy capitals, taking them both out in nuclear explosions. Captain Dae-hyun commanded the Defiant at the front of the battle. His ship had already taken heavy damage, but he kept fighting. When a Devourer capital ship tried to flank the human formation, he led a group of destroyers in a suicide run, planting nuclear charges directly on its hull. The explosion took out the enemy ship and 3 of the destroyers. The Defiant barely escaped, trailing atmosphere and bodies. The battle raged for 3 days. The human fleet fought with skill and courage that would have won any normal battle. But this was not normal. The Devourers kept coming, wave after wave, replacing losses faster than humanity could inflict them. Finally, Admiral Ji-won gave the order to fall back. All ships retreat to Mars orbit. Defensive positions. Of the 500 ships that started the battle, only 150 survived. The Devourer Vanguard was destroyed, but it had barely slowed the main fleet. On Earth, people watched the skies in terror as the enemy approached. General Taeyang coordinated ground defenses, knowing that orbital battle was only the first phase. Eventually, the Devourers would land. Sergeant Jinwoo was in Seoul with his battalion, watching the defense platforms in orbit fire continuously at the approaching enemy fleet. Explosions lit up the night sky like fireworks, but they kept coming. "Sergeant, are we going to die?" a young soldier asked. Jinwoo looked at the kid. He wanted to lie, to offer false hope. "But these soldiers deserve the truth." "Maybe," he said. "Probably. But we are going to take a lot of them with us. And maybe, just maybe, we will win. Either way, we fight." The main Devourer fleet reached Earth orbit 2 days later. The sight of it broke the spirits of many who saw it. Thousands of massive bioships blotting out the sun. They began firing on the planetary shields, testing them, probing for weakness. The shields held. Barely. Then the landing craft began to drop. They came down all over the planet. North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, everywhere at once. The creatures poured out. The same nightmares that had consumed Kelthera. But this time, humanity was ready. In Seoul, Jinwoo's battalion met the first wave at the city limits. The Devourers came in a swarm, thousands of mutated creatures charging across open ground. "Hold fire," Jinwoo ordered. "Let them get closer." The creatures were 50 meters away. "Fire!" The defensive line erupted in a wall of bullets, explosions, and plasma. The leading edge of the enemy charge simply vanished, cut down by concentrated fire, but more kept coming. The battle for Seoul lasted 6 hours before Jinwoo's line broke. They fell back to secondary positions, then tertiary. The creatures were overwhelming them through sheer numbers. Jinwoo found himself in a last stand with 20 soldiers at an evacuation point, protecting civilians trying to reach underground shelters. The creatures were everywhere. His ammunition was almost gone. "This is it," he said to his soldiers. "We hold here." No matter what, they held for 20 minutes, then 15 soldiers, then 10, then 5. Jinwoo fired his last magazine, watching the creatures advance. He fixed his bayonet, ready to die fighting. Then the sky lit up. A massive explosion blossomed above them. Then another. And another. The creatures around them stopped, confused. Then they started dying, collapsing where they stood. Jinwoo looked up and saw the Defiant in low orbit, firing everything it had at the enemy ground forces. Behind it came more ships, more fire support. Captain Daehyun's voice came through on all channels. "All ground forces, the Admiral is making a move. Hold your positions. We are coming." In space, something incredible was happening. Admiral Hyunwoo had made a decision that was either brilliant or insane, maybe both. He was taking the remaining fleet directly to the enemy command ship, the massive vessel at the center of their formation. The one Yuna had identified as the Hive Core. He was not just attacking it. He was going to ram it. "Sir, this is suicide," his tactical officer said. "Yes," Hyunwoo agreed calmly, "but it is suicide that might save Earth. Daehyun, Minji, you are with me. Everyone else, cover us and then fall back to defend the planet." Captain Daehyun brought the Defiant alongside the Admiral's flagship. Lieutenant Minji and her surviving Special Forces team boarded via shuttle, carrying the quantum disruptor device that Yuna had designed. The fleet made its run. 50 ships drove straight at the enemy center, ignoring everything else. They took devastating losses. 30 ships, 40, 45. But they reached the Hive Core. Admiral Hyunwoo's flagship was the first to strike, smashing into the enormous bioship's hull. The impact tore both vessels apart, but it created an opening. The Defiant and 5 other ships pushed through into the interior of the massive creature. Inside was a nightmare. Organic corridors pulsed with unnatural life. Defense organisms attacked from every direction. The walls themselves tried to crush them. Hyunwoo, Daehyun, and Minji led the strike team deeper. They were down to 30 soldiers. Then 20. Then 10. Minji took a hit from a defense organism but kept moving, one arm useless. "Keep going! We are almost there." They reached the core chamber. It was vast, filled with a brain-like structure that pulsed with quantum energy. This was the thing coordinating the entire Devourer swarm across multiple star systems. "Set the charges," Hyunwoo ordered. They planted the quantum disruptor directly on the core. Minji armed it herself, her good hand steady despite the pain. 30 seconds until detonation, she said. "We need to move." They ran. Behind them, creatures poured into the chamber trying to stop them. Minji turned and opened fire, covering the retreat. "Go," she shouted. "I will hold them." "Minji, no." Daehyun tried to turn back. "Go," she screamed. "Make it count." The last thing they saw was Minji standing alone against the swarm, still firing. They made it back to the Defiant with seconds to spare. As the ship pulled away, the quantum disruptor activated. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Hive Core ship convulsed, its entire structure collapsing. But more importantly, every Devourer vessel, every creature, every organism connected to the Hive suddenly lost coordination. On Earth, Sergeant Jinwoo watched in amazement as the creatures attacking his position simply stopped. They stood frozen for a moment, confused. Then they started attacking each other, the hive mind that controlled them gone. Human forces struck back with renewed fury. Without coordination, the Devourers were just animals. Dangerous animals, but killable. In orbit, the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Ships crashed into each other. Weapons fired randomly. The humans pressed the attack, destroying vessel after vessel. It took 12 hours to mop up. 12 hours of brutal fighting to kill every last creature on Earth and destroy every ship in orbit. But when it was done, humanity stood victorious. The cost was terrible. 5 billion human casualties, 400,000 Keltheran refugees dead, entire cities destroyed. The fleet was reduced to 15 functional vessels. But Earth survived. Admiral Hyunwoo and Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the debris field that had been the Devourer fleet burn up in Earth's atmosphere. "We did it," Dae-hyun said quietly. "We did," Hyunwoo agreed. "But look at the cost." 1 year later, a monument was unveiled in Geneva. It listed the names of every person who died in the war. Human and Keltheran names together. Millions of them. Part 4. Humanity mobilizes. The fleet emerged from Quantum Jump 3 weeks later. Earth was ahead of them, blue and beautiful and completely unprepared for what was coming. Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching his home planet grow larger on the view screen. The ship was damaged, scarred by enemy fire. Every vessel in the fleet looked the same. They were the survivors of a slaughter, and they had brought 2.2 million refugees with them. Earth Control is requesting permission to board and inspect, the communications officer said. "Tell them we need immediate medical aid and docking clearance for all vessels," Hyunwoo replied, "and tell them we need to address the World Council, now." The landing took 12 hours. The Keltherans emerged from the transports into a world they had never imagined. Green forests, blue oceans, cities untouched by war, children playing in parks instead of hiding from monsters. Some of them collapsed and wept. The human response was mixed. News networks showed the aliens constantly, debating what their arrival meant. Some people welcomed them with open arms. Others demanded they be sent away. Politicians argued about resources, security, and the risk of bringing these survivors to Earth. Then Elder Velthar addressed the United Nations. The chamber was packed. Every nation's representative was present, along with military leaders and the press. Yuna stood beside Velthar, helping with the translation. The Keltharan elder spoke slowly, choosing words carefully. "People of Earth, I am Velthar. I am the last elder of the Keltharan Union, which once spanned 30 worlds and held billions of souls. We were an old civilization. We had art, music, philosophy. We had children who played and adults who dreamed. We were not so different from you." The chamber was silent. Then the Devourers came. "We do not know where they are from. We do not know what they want beyond consumption. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply consume. They took our worlds one by one, no matter how hard we fought. 17 worlds fell before we sent our distress call. We did not think anyone would answer." Velthar paused, his crystalline body catching the light. "But you did. You came across impossible distances to help people you had never met. You fought and died for us. You saved 2.2 million lives when you could have saved none. For that we will be grateful until the stars burn out." Another pause. When Velthar spoke again, his voice was harder. "But I did not come here just to give thanks. I came to give you a warning. The Devourers do not stop. They do not rest. They tracked us here. They are coming for Earth. You have 6 months, maybe less. We are sorry. We brought this doom to your doorstep. But you need to prepare, because what you saw at Kelthera was just the beginning." The chamber erupted in shouting. Some delegates demanded the Keltherans be removed from the system immediately. Others called for military action. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Admiral Jiwon stood and called for order. When the chamber quieted, she spoke with the authority of someone who had seen the enemy firsthand. I was there. I watched these creatures destroy everything in their path. Commander Hyunwoo is right. We cannot run from this. We cannot hide. We have to fight, or we will die just like every other species the Devourers have consumed. General Tae Yang stood next. Our deep-range sensors confirm Elder Velthar's warning. We are detecting quantum signatures consistent with Devourer vessels. They are coming here. We have 6 months to prepare. The vote was taken. It was not even close. Humanity would stand and fight. What followed was the greatest mobilization in human history. Every shipyard went to full production. The orbital facilities around Earth, Mars, and Luna began churning out warships 24 hours a day. Engineers worked with Keltheran scientists, combining human industrial capacity with alien technology. General Tai Yang oversaw the construction of planetary defense platforms. Massive weapons arrays were built in orbit, forming rings of steel around Earth and the colony worlds. Shield generators based on Keltheran designs were installed on every major city. The draft was reinstated. 50 million men and women volunteered or were conscripted into military service. Training facilities opened on every continent. The veterans from Kelthera Prime became instructors, teaching the new soldiers what to expect. Sergeant Jinwoo found himself in front of a classroom of terrified recruits. They looked so young. Most of them had never held a weapon before. "Listen up," he said quietly. "I am not going to lie to you. The Devourers are nightmares. They are fast, they are strong, and they do not stop. I have seen them tear through defensive lines like paper. I have watched good soldiers die because they hesitated for 1 second. The recruits looked even more terrified now. But, Jinwoo continued, they can be killed. I have killed dozens of them. They die just like anything else if you hit them hard enough and fast enough. The key is not to panic, not to freeze. You keep shooting until they stop moving. You protect the soldier next to you. You remember why you are fighting." He paused, thinking of the Keltheran child who had given Yuna the crystal. "We are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting for survival. For every person on this planet and every refugee who trusted us to protect them, that is worth dying for." The recruits left that day looking a little less terrified and a little more determined. Lieutenant Minji was not training recruits. She was doing something far more dangerous. She was leading Black Ops missions into Devourer-controlled space, gathering intelligence. Her team would jump into a dead system, scan for enemy patterns, and jump out before being detected. It was terrifying work. One mistake meant death or worse, capture and consumption. But the intelligence they gathered was vital. They learned that the Devourers had a hive structure. They learned about weak points in their armor. They learned how the creatures communicated and coordinated. Every piece of information was sent back to Earth, where Yuna and the Keltheran scientists worked to develop countermeasures. The breakthrough came 4 months into the preparation. Yuna had been working 18-hour days, barely sleeping, trying to find a weakness. The Devourers seemed unstoppable. They regenerated damage. They adapted to tactics. They overwhelmed through numbers and resilience. Then she noticed something in the data Minji had collected. The creatures operated on quantum frequencies, just like their faster-than-light communication. They were networked together, coordinating through signals that moved faster than light itself. If they could disrupt those signals, the hive would fall into chaos. She brought her findings to Commander Hyunwoo, who was now Fleet Admiral and in charge of the entire defense. "You are saying we can shut them down?" he asked, studying her data. "Not shut them down entirely," Yuna explained. "But we can disrupt their coordination, make them fight as individuals instead of as a unified swarm. It will not be easy. We would need to get a quantum disruptor close to their command ships." "How close?" "Very close. Maybe even inside one." Hyunwoo looked at the tactical display showing Earth and its defenses. 500 new warships, planetary shields, millions of trained soldiers. It was impressive, but he knew it would not be enough. Not against the numbers they were expecting. But if they could disrupt the hive coordination, maybe they had a chance. "Keep working on it," he said. "We will find a way." Captain Dae-hyun had been given command of a new flagship, the TSN Defiant. It was built specifically to fight the Devourers, with heavier armor, more powerful weapons, and every upgrade the engineers could think of. He stood on the bridge, watching the fleet assemble. 500 ships. It looked like a lot. But he had been at Kelthera. He knew what was coming. 1 month before the projected Devourer arrival, Admiral Hyunwoo addressed the combined human and Keltharan military forces. The broadcast was sent to every ship, every base, every soldier. We are about to face an enemy that has consumed hundreds of civilizations. They think we are just another meal, just another species to add to their collection. They are wrong. His voice was hard, certain. They do not know humanity. They do not know that we answered a distress call from people we had never met. They do not know that we flew 1,200 light years to fight a battle that was not ours. They do not know that we will die before we let them take our world. He paused, looking directly into the camera. 6 months ago, one call echoed through the stars, and we answered. Now we will show them what happens when humanity goes to war. We will show them that we are not prey. We are the ones who answer the call, and we will not stop until every last one of them is dead or running. Across Earth and the colonies, millions of soldiers cheered. The countdown began. 30 days until the Devourers arrived. Part 1. The Distress Call. The alarm screamed through the deep space monitoring station at 3 in the morning. Lieutenant Yuna jerked awake at her desk, coffee spilling across her papers. She had been working the night shift for 6 years and nothing ever happened. Nothing real anyway, just space noise and satellite glitches. But this was different. The signal came through on frequencies that should not exist. Her screens filled with data that made no sense. The computer was trying to translate something, and it was not random static. It was a message. Yuna's hands shook as she reached for the emergency comm link. "This is Station 7. I need Commander Hyunwoo immediately." "We have something." 30 minutes later, Commander Hyunwoo stood in the monitoring room staring at the same screens. He was a tall man with gray starting to show in his hair. He had fought in the Mars Colony Wars and the Europa riots. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Play it again," he said quietly. The translation software had been working for 20 minutes now, piecing together the message from quantum signals that traveled faster than light. The voice that came through the speakers was broken and desperate. It sounded almost human, but not quite. There were clicks and whistles underneath the words, "Under siege." 17. World's fallen. The Devourers consume. All, any who can hear this, please. We are the last of the Keltharan Union. Coordinates. Follow, please. Then, static. Hyunwoo felt something cold settle in his stomach. Humanity had been in space for almost 100 years. They had built colonies on 6 worlds. They had sent probes to 1,000 more. And in all that time, they had never found anyone else. No aliens, no intelligent life. Nothing but empty planets and dead rocks until now. "Where did it come from?" he asked. Yuna pulled up a star map. A single point glowed red in the darkness. "Kepler 442 system. About 1,200 light years away? That's impossible. Nothing can send a signal that far." "I know, sir. But it's there. And it's real." Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his comm and made a call he never thought he would make. "Get me Admiral Ji-won. Wake her up if you have to. Tell her we have first contact." The next 6 hours were chaos. Admiral Ji-won arrived with General Tae-yang and a dozen senior officers. They gathered in the command center beneath Geneva, where the United Terran Defense Coalition had its headquarters. The room was built to coordinate wars between human nations. Now it was being used for something no one had planned for. They played the message 100 times. Analysts worked on the translation, making it clearer. Scientists studied the quantum frequencies. Military planners pulled up everything they knew about the Kepler 442 system, which was not much. It was just another star with a few planets too far away to matter, until now. "Is this real?" General Tae-yang asked. He was a blunt man who did not like mysteries. Could this be a fake? Some kind of test or enemy trick? "The signal is real," Yuna said. She had been brought to the command center and was now the most important person in the room. "The physics are real. This is not human technology. Someone else sent this. Or something else," another officer muttered. Admiral Ji-won studied the star map. She was known for being calm under pressure, but Hyunwoo could see the tension in her shoulders. "If this is legitimate, we are listening to someone die. An entire civilization calling for help as they are destroyed. By something called the Devourers," Tae-yang added. "Whatever those are." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If humanity answered this call, they would be flying into a war zone against an enemy they knew nothing about. an enemy that had destroyed 17 worlds. The politicians arrived next. Ministers and presidents joined the call by video link, arguing about what to do. Some said it was too dangerous. Others said it was a trap. A few said humanity should just ignore it and hope the devourers never found Earth. Hyunwoo listened to them argue for an hour. Then he stood up. "Enough," he said quietly, but everyone stopped talking. "We have a new quantum jump gate system. We can reach Kepler 442 in 3 weeks. I am taking the first expeditionary force to investigate." "You cannot just decide that," a minister said. "This requires approval from—" "I am deciding it," Hyunwoo interrupted. "Someone called for help. That is all I need to know." Admiral Jiwon smiled slightly. "I will have the fleet ready in 48 hours. Are you both insane?" Another politician shouted. "You will start a war with something we do not understand." Hyunwoo turned to face the screens. "If someone calls for help and we do nothing, then what are we? We have spent 100 years alone in the dark, wondering if anyone else was out there. Now we know. And they are dying. I will not let humanity be the kind of species that hears a scream and walks away." The vote was taken. It was close, but Hyunwoo got his authorization. The next 2 days were a blur of activity. The first expeditionary force was assembled. 50 warships, 200,000 Marines, supply vessels, medical ships, and everything they could carry. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever put together. Captain Dae-hyun was given command of the flagship, the TSN Indomitable. He was young for a captain, but had proven himself in combat simulations. He had never fought a real battle. None of them had. Lieutenant Minji led the elite special forces teams. She was small and quiet, but her soldiers would follow her into hell. They might have to. Sergeant Jinwoo was loading supplies onto a transport when another Marine asked him what he thought they would find. "No idea," Jinwoo said, "but I have a bad feeling about this." The fleet gathered in orbit above Earth. Millions of people watched from the ground as the ships powered up their engines. The quantum jump gates opened, swirling portals of bent space that would carry them across 1,200 light-years in 3 weeks. Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching Earth shrink behind them. Admiral Jiwon was beside him, and General Tae Yang was reviewing deployment plans. "Do you think they are still alive?" Jiwon asked quietly. "I do not know," Hyunwoo admitted. "But we answered. That is what matters." The fleet jumped. Space twisted around them, and Earth vanished. They were committed now. Humanity had heard a call from the stars, and they were racing to answer it. What they would find when they arrived, no one knew. But for the first time in human history, they were not alone, and they were going to war.